The air inside the Zenith Airways Skyline Suite was thick with the scent of aged bourbon and genuine leather, a familiar opulence for Sterling Thorne, a man whose name echoed through the hallowed halls of global finance. En route from New York to Zurich, Sterling, clad in a flawlessly tailored midnight blue suit, opened his custom-built tablet, his mind already dissecting the intricate details of a hostile takeover bid he was orchestrating against a rival conglomerate. He'd meticulously pre-ordered his in-flight dining, as was his custom, a delicate langoustine consommé, followed by a pan-seared Kobe beef with truffle reduction. It was more than just a meal. It was a testament to the seamless, elevated experience he expected from the world's most exclusive airline. He gestured to a passing flight attendant, a young woman named Chelsea, whose practiced smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Sterling calmly confirmed his order, then plunged back into the swirling vortex of corporate strategy. Moments later, Chelsea returned, her smile now a tight, almost imperceptible grimace. "Mr. Thorne, my sincerest apologies, but it appears we're out of your chosen premium selections. You'll have to select from our standard first-class menu." Her voice was smooth, almost rehearsed, but Sterling, a master of subtle tells, detected a faint, almost imperceptible tremor of dismissiveness in her tone. Sterling paused, his brow furrowing slightly. "Out? I reserved this meal weeks ago." "It must not have registered," she replied, a casual shrug accompanying her words before she pivoted to attend to another passenger. A cold, precise anger began to simmer within Sterling. He stared at the uninspired chicken salad sandwich and lukewarm, sparkling water placed before him. Around him, the Skyline Suite was a tableau of pampered privilege. 5 other passengers, all affluent, impeccably dressed Caucasian men, were being served with an almost theatrical flourish, shimmering caviar, crystal flutes clinking with vintage champagne. It wasn't just a meal. It was a stark, undeniable contrast. He discreetly scanned the cabin. He was the only black man in the Skyline Suite. In that precise moment, the cumulative weight of Chelsea's vague replies, her hurried departure, the utter lack of a genuine apology, coalesced into a chilling clarity. This wasn't an oversight. This was a calculated slight, a quiet assertion that he, Sterling Thorne, did not truly belong here, despite his status and his platinum ticket. He'd encountered this before. The veiled assumptions, the quiet underestimation, but never so brazenly, never in a space where he paid a premium for guaranteed perfection. A quiet, almost glacial fury settled over him. Sterling Thorne wasn't one for dramatic outbursts. He was a silent predator, a grand chess master. He wouldn't just react. He would dismantle. He tapped his fingers rhythmically on the armrest, his mind already formulating a precise, surgical counterstrike. This wasn't about a sandwich. It was about the insidious, systemic prejudice that allowed such slights to fester. His phone buzzed. It was Lila Vance, his sharp-as-nails chief of staff. "Everything in order for Zurich, Sterling," the message read. Sterling typed a single, impactful sentence. "Initiate Zenith Corporate Compliance Audit, Flight Z, 718, crew roster and service logs required. Confirm upon readiness." He wasn't just going to even the score. He was going to expose the rot within Zenith Airways' culture and force a seismic shift. As the flight continued its journey across the Atlantic, Sterling remained outwardly calm, his expression inscrutable. The cabin crew, blissfully unaware of the tempest he was brewing, continued their duties, their polite chatter echoing around him. But Sterling had already set the wheels of change in motion. By the time they touched down in Zurich, everything would have irrevocably shifted for Zenith Airway. Lila Vance's fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, her eyes scanning the glowing screen in front of her. Deep in Zenith Airways' digital archives, she was uncovering the threads that would unravel the airline's facade of excellence. Sterling had never been one to make requests lightly, and his most recent demand, his silence on the flight, followed by a subtle shift in behavior, spoke volumes about his true intentions. He wasn't merely upset about a meal. This was part of something much larger. As she accessed the personnel files for Flight Z 718, the flight Sterling had been on, Lila's heart rate quickened. She knew Sterling was methodical in his approach, always thinking several steps ahead. What she found was startling. Chelsea, the flight attendant who had so blatantly dismissed Sterling, had a history of minor complaints, preferential treatment towards certain passengers, condescending remarks about others, and an unsettling aloofness. These weren't isolated incidents. They painted a picture of an ingrained, systemic issue that no one had dared address. Back on the flight, Sterling's eyes narrowed as he pressed the service button once more, his finger tapping the surface with precision. When Richard, the lead flight attendant, approached with his customary forced smile, Sterling's voice was calm but undeniably firm. "Richard," he began, his words deliberate, "I pre-ordered a very specific meal, and what I received is entirely different." Chelsea mentioned something about prioritizing guests. "Could you explain that policy to me?" Richard's confident facade cracked almost immediately. He stammered, trying to find words that could justify the situation, but Sterling cut him off. "No need for an explanation, Richard," Sterling said, his tone still level, but carrying an underlying threat. "I understand perfectly." As the flight descended into Zurich, Sterling's mind was already working. This meal wasn't the issue. This was about exposing something far deeper, something that had been allowed to fester within Zenith Airway for years. The airline's carefully curated reputation of luxury and exclusivity had a dark underbelly of discrimination, and Sterling was about to ensure that everyone knew about it. When the plane touched down, two executives from Zenith Airway were waiting at the gate, their faces betraying a mix of confusion and unease. They had no idea what awaited them. As Sterling walked past them without a word, his thoughts were already focused on the next step. The evidence, the video of Chelsea's dismissive behavior, along with a damning compilation of past complaints against various Zenith staff, had already been sent to the board of directors, accompanied by his non-negotiable demand for an independent audit of the airline's service protocols and diversity training. The cabin crew, still unaware of the magnitude of Sterling's move, began disembarking. But they weren't met by the usual cheerful ground staff. Instead, a team of HR officers and corporate security stood ready. As Chelsea, Richard, and several others were quietly escorted away, their employment records frozen, and their actions under immediate review, they began to realize the gravity of the situation. IT wasn't just the meal, nor was it the snubs Sterling had endured. Sterling had been gathering evidence for months, meticulously documenting every instance of microaggressions, biases, and subtle forms of discrimination that had slipped through the cracks. And now, with surgical precision, he was dismantling a system that had allowed such behavior to continue unchecked. Chelsea's arrogance, Richard's unflinching obedience to the company's discriminatory culture, it all came crashing down. There was no grand confrontation, no public spectacle. It was a quiet, ruthless unraveling of a broken system. Sterling's actions were an unspoken declaration. No one, no matter how high their rank, should ever be allowed to treat others as inferior. As the staff were led away, their faces a mixture of disbelief and fear. The message was clear. This wasn't about a single flight attendant or a misplaced meal. This was about altering the very fabric of Zenith Airways culture. Sterling had not only held the crew accountable, he had ignited a chain reaction that would forever alter the airline's policies and, hopefully, its core values. Behind the scenes, Lila was already receiving notifications of meetings being scheduled with the airline's top brass. There was no turning back now. Sterling had exposed a weakness in the system, an illness that had been festering under the surface for far too long, and now there was no way to sweep it under the rug. The airline's board had no choice but to take action. For the flight attendants, this wasn't just a job loss. It was the loss of a shield they had hidden behind for far too long. Their belief that their positions granted them immunity from accountability. They had treated people as lesser, but Sterling had shown them just how wrong they were. As Sterling's quiet revolution took shape, he remained out of the spotlight, allowing his actions to speak louder than any words could. His decision was not about revenge. It was about creating a space where respect and dignity were non-negotiable. By targeting the system, he didn't just shake the foundations of Zenith Airway. He set a precedent for how companies across the world should approach issues of equality and customer service. The crew, who thought they were untouchable, now understood that no one was beyond reproach. And Sterling? He had not only changed the course of his flight, he had ignited a broader conversation about systemic inequality that would resonate far beyond the walls of Zenith Airway.